The greatness of what you're doing now. Well, people will tell you, live in the moment. It's the greatest moment you have, the one that you're living in. Be totally invested in it. Give yourself over completely to it in the moment that you're living. Because you're not going to get it returned, right? People are worried about, and there's a beautiful phrase that in Hebrew, it rhymes very well as Anashim doigim al ibud moinam velo al ibud zmanam. People are worried about the loss of money and not the loss of time. Ibud, the loss of money can be returned, but the loss of time can't. So therefore, this moment is the greatest moment, and therefore, be totally engaged. Totally engaged in it. Um, you know, you ever spoke to somebody and you're looking them in the eyes and they're kind of looking over your shoulder because they see someone else maybe that they're kind of, eyeing to go speak to. So are they engaged? Well, obviously not. They're not. Then they ain't there. Totally, right? So yeah, every moment, it's a precious moment, live for it. But that being said, we're learning, that there is distinctions in the things that we do and what is more valuable. So in the previous class, we learned that the ultimate, most valuable thing is tzedakah, being charitable. Why? Because that is the greatest refinement of your being. Because you work hard for your money, and even if you and which means to work hard means engages your, as we say, blood, sweat, and tears. So it engages you in a more total way than other things, like a conversation with somebody, right? Is not necessarily as engaging. You got to listen, so it takes focus to listen, but it's not a whole body involvement. Especially back in the day, people were agrarian. So, like, tilling the soil, working the land was a complete engagement. Literally blood, sweat, and tears, right? And even if today, you only make your livelihood through punching a bunch of keys on a keyboard and you're not working very hard. And, maybe because of that, we've got obesity problems, right? Um, Yet, with the money that you earn, it is money that you can use for your own survival and to make your survival more pleasant, more enjoyable, a better piece of, food to eat, a nicer looking, dish, a tastier one, and could use for that. And what you give it to charity. So as we learned that is a greater giving yourself over, or refinement of yourself, that you're giving that to tzedakah, that money, which is phenomenal when you think about it. It's something else. Um, it's something else. And in that respect, there's nothing in the mitzvahs that we do to connect to God greater than tzedakah. That's what we learned in yesterday's class. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. So, tzedakah, charity, the greatest thing in this moment you could do? Well, comes the Alter Rebbe and says, hold on. there's a statement that we can make the argument different, switch it around. And the argument is based on teachings of our sages in the Talmud. They say, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. We say this every morning in our morning prayers. The Mishnah, at the end of the morning blessings, we say that the study of Torah outweighs, equals every other mitzvah, including charity. But we just said charity is greater than all the mitzvahs. Now we got a statement saying the opposite. Got to put on your Talmudic caps for this one, folks. Well, we're all going to start it today. We're not going to finish the argument today. But the Alter Rebbe makes a point like this. What is it about the study of Torah that's the greatest thing that you can do right now, which you are doing right now? The greatest thing is what you're doing right now. Well, according to today's teachings, in the study of Torah, what is unique about it? Well, study of Torah employs speech, as I'm speaking, and thought, and most definitely thought, because if your thoughts are not focused here, and you are multitasking, then it's unlikely you're really learning Torah, or definitely you're not learning it properly, because your thoughts have to be fully engaged, right? So the first point, it's actually touching a deeper part in you. When you do an action, action is the most removed part of the human soul. And the proof is, I'm acting upon this pen. Well, this pen's outside of me. I'm pushed. I threw the pen. I threw it down. Hey, that occurred outside of me, and now the pen is even separate from me. I'm not even holding on to it. That's action. Now, that has a nice effect on the world, right? If you take action. But the power of the individual, it's the lowest power of the individual. Not lowest in the value, that's not the point over here, but in self-definition, if you will. It's the or the expression of you. It's the least expression of you, in the sense that it's outside of you and not really you. Because you can do an act and not really, be there. As opposed to your thoughts. And the thoughts of the person, that's where you're at, right? If you're constantly thinking negative, you're constantly thinking in an angry way, guess what? That's where you are. That's where you're living. That's where you're holding, right? Between here, your thoughts, that's where you live. That's the inner dimension of who and what you are. No, I shouldn't say that. That's an inner expression, not an inner fact. It's just an inner expression. So when you study Torah, like no other mitzvahs, you're bringing the light of the Torah into your mind, into your thoughts, and you are refining that, right? Your thoughts now. When you do an action of a mitzvah, like charity, it's not inherently affecting your inner thoughts. Involved in the mitzvah is not your inner thoughts, because you can mindlessly take the coin and put it into the charity box. Did you do a mitzvah if you did it mindlessly? Absolutely, because it's the act that's important here. Is it good to be mindful? Absolutely. Not, but the mitzvah is in the act itself. Mindlessly, it's still an act of a mitzvah, as opposed to studying Torah right now. If you're just sitting there in front of your computer, or in front of your phone, or right here, right? By the way, today's learning is for the yard site in honor of our late Ben Eliezer, Third yurt site is neshama, go from strength to strength. A pillar of our place here for many, many years. And yeah, special. Good you. So, but when you're studying Torah, if you're not, your thoughts are not, you know, coinciding with what is being taught, and your thoughts are elsewhere, you didn't study Torah, right? So if you're having a conversation right now, if you're having a conversation with another person, which fine, if sometimes you need to do that. I don't say this in, like pointing a finger. No, no, don't do that. Yeah, I'm not. That's not why I do that. Sometimes it happens in the middle of learning. You have to um, redirect your mind. Yeah, because you have an obligation. But in that moment, you're not connected through the learning because the learning has to be in your thoughts, right? So that's the first point. Furthermore, the very substance of the essence of one's intellect, Chabad, Chachma Bina V'das, is actually absorbing the holiness of the Torah that you're learning. So it's not just your thoughts to be there, right? Which they are in study of Torah, but your actual wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, Chabad, is now also being refined, which is very interesting. Even though the essence of the emotional aspects, chagas, right, are emotional parts of the soul of the Beinim. You cannot transform it into holiness, right? Emotions. Who transforms them into holiness? Only the righteous. We don't do that. We're not capable of that, right? That the feelings, the raw feelings in your heart, that if you have a raw feeling in your heart of negativity to somebody, right? We don't have to think it, but the feeling itself, we do not command it. We do not have control over that. We only have control that we don't give it playtime. That means in your thoughts. But the feeling itself is beyond your thoughts. The world of emotion in your heart. That we can transform. Only the righteous do, right? However, our intelligence itself, in other words, our perspective, the way we see things, right? Cup half full, half empty idea, right? Or that I see another person in a competitive way. No, that's emotions. No, yeah, that would be more emotions. And even cup half full, half empty. I guess that's a perspective, and it's a perspective of the mind, so which leads to the emotion, right? It leads to the emotion, but it's a perspective, right? So by learning Torah, that perspective can be changed. How come? Which is amazing, right? How come? Huh? Menachem Hillel. How is that?
Because you know how to when you apply the words of Torah, you act differently.
That doesn't explain it. It's because when you're learning Torah, you're learning divine wisdom. So God's divine wisdom now becomes your wisdom, becomes your understanding, becomes your knowledge. So it's changing it, right? In other words, instead of seeing the world the way you see it when you study Torah, it's absorbed into your mind, into your brain, seeing the world the way God sees it. So that's a change in one's intelligence, in one's Chabad. which is an amazing, amazing thing. My emotions, I can't change through the Torah. I can give it less playtime, which therefore, if I don't think those negative feelings, then those negative feelings just don't have self-expression. Doesn't mean they're not there. Maybe one day they're going to be triggered, right? But when something extreme happens, they'll be triggered. By the fact I give them less playtime, it means they are minimized somewhat in my heart, but they're not really minimized. I didn't really transform it, right? But when you study Torah, so till now I understood to look at the world one way. Look at a person, like I looked at a person, he's a creation of God. Like an animal's a creation of God. Oh, now I study Torah. No, he's created in the image of God, right? And then when I understand what that means, all of a sudden I look at a person differently, right? I perceive them differently, for example. That's amazing. But that comes through the study of Torah. You won't get that through doing a mitzvah, giving charity, right? That's not going to change. That's the second point. And the third point in the uniqueness of study Torah is that the unity with God is much greater. Unity of God is much greater. Let's explain that. God's mitzvahs are like the organs of the king, like our organs, right? My hand is nullified to my will, but my will and my hand are ultimately two different things. So my will says, pick up the hand. Guess what? My hand is nullified to my will, and my hand is picked up, right? Likewise, the commands of God, the mitzvahs of God, are like they're His will, and they're nullified and one with God, like the hand is nullified to the will, right? So therefore, when I do the mitzvah, I become nullified to God, to His will, and I'm bound up to Him. But metaphorically, like the hand is nullified to the will. They're two separate things, but yet nullified. So I'm nullified through the act of giving charity or the act of putting on tefillin, right? As the hand is nullified to the will of the person. Okay? But there's no comparison to that, to the vitality of the brain, the intellect, that's divided into Chachma Bina V'das, right? The intellect is an extension of the soul itself. So it's not like when you say the intellect of the person and the soul, they're not like two separate entities. The will of the person and the limb of the person are two different entities. Yeah, they're of the person, obviously. The limb is my limb and the will is of me. But they're two different entities, two different aspects, right? God forbid you could lose a limb. You didn't lose your will, though, right? And sometimes people say that afterwards they experience, right? They lost a limb. They experience as if they have it because the will, that's how they're connected. But in the end, they're two separate entities. But the brain and the soul are not two separate entities. Right? The intellect of the person is an extension of part of the soul itself. Therefore, the unity with the soul is not that of two separate entities, but two components of one whole. I hope you got that. So likewise, when it comes to the study of Torah, the unity with God is like the intellect with the soul is two component, right? So likewise, our unity with God is so much greater. The Ein Sof light that's enclosed in the Chabad faculties of our intelligence, right, when you immerse yourself in the wisdom of Torah, is a perfect unity, a much greater unity with God. Wow. But all we're getting and grasping is the like at the low end of the Torah, the way it's down here in the physical, as opposed to the way it is above in the spiritual realm. That's okay. Like Torah is like water. The water on top of the mountain is the same water at the bottom of the mountain. It's the same Torah that God gave us on in the spiritual realm as it is here down in the physical world. The only difference is here it's been, you know, enclosed in layers as it came down and expresses itself in the material world. It's just garments that are, you know, covering. But when we study Torah, we're still absorbing and being united with God Himself, Ein Sof. Again, when you do mitzvah, also you are, but not in the same way. It's like the limb to the will, right? As opposed to here, the intellect to to the soul itself. Very powerful. I hope you got that, folks. Any questions? By the way, today is also the third yahrzeit of Michael Amowitz, and today's learning is in his honor. Davida has a question. If a non-observant person gives charity but doesn't study Torah, is there still same as if they study Torah? It's not the same as studying Torah. It's two different mitzvahs. Not clear why that would be a question. It's as if you study. Why would you say it's as if you study Torah? If you didn't study Torah and you gave charity, so you did that mitzvah. Lisa, could the biggest act of tzedakah be the giving of your time to those who are in need, since time cannot be replaced? So if what we explained is, what you're saying is good, Lisa, there's a truth to it, right? There's a truth to that. But that's not the point we made. It's true, giving your time, yes, something that you can't get back. But it's not the physical world that you engaged in. It's not as great a refinement as when you talk about that you worked hard for your money, or that your money can be used for your own physical needs, right? Enhancing them, you know, and you give away to charity, that's a greater refinement than your time. And that was what we spoke about. So what you're saying is correct, but that's not the same thing. Tomorrow is Simcha's Hebrew birthday. Okay, should be a day of bracha, atzlacha. Don't forget before Shabbos to give tzedakah and say your new kapitel Tillim tomorrow. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Remember, put two question marks before. This makes it easy to see. Jeff, does studying Torah bring darkness into light like the physical act of the mitzvah? Yeah, it does. The darkness of our mind. Our mind is in the dark. So studying Torah brings light to it? Yes. In that respect, yes. But not in the physical world, where money is the root of all evil by some people, right? The money is, a very self-centered and self-absorption, um, you know, that buys you pleasure, buys you power for yourself, and then you give that away, right? That's bringing darkness not just into you and transforming into light, but into the physicality of the world. David, I know many secular Jews who never study Torah. However, they will do a mitzvah, so they have no merit in the studying of Torah, only giving tzedakah. Okay, so they don't have that, but they have, as the Talmud tells us, the um, sinners of Israel are full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate is full of seeds. Okay, all right. As we mentioned, today's class in honor of third yard site of Leo Stroll. Uh, Aaron Leib, Ben, Laser, Eliezer. Shem goes from strength to strength. Michael Amowitz. Birthday's coming up. And all good things. All right, folks, Rambam's coming up. Well, our conversation will continue because we made the argument one way. The Rebbe will make the argument back about tzedakah, that being greater. Because today we brought out how learning is greater than charity. Yesterday we brought out charity is greater than learning. I'm going to go back further and discuss. We'll see.